afternoon to the department. Good afternoon to members of the community that might join in and the media that might join in on this platform. Welcome to this Standing Committee meeting of Education this afternoon. I'm going to ask members to introduce themselves. My name is Lorraine Botha. I'm the chairperson for the Standing Committee on Education.
Good afternoon, chairperson and the department and colleagues. Regan Allen.
Good afternoon, chairperson, and good afternoon, fellow members, honorable members and department. Khalil Brankais.
Good afternoon, members, and good afternoon, Chair. It's Mesuli Kama. Chair, to indicate that member site is actually logging in now.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gillian Bosman.
Thank you very much, members. Thank you, Member Kama, for that notice. I also want to welcome our procedural officer, Wasima Hassan Musa, who is joining us and who has facilitated the logistics around this meeting. And thank you for IT, who is also assisting us this afternoon so that this vehicle runs smoothly throughout the Standing Committee meeting. I'm now going to give an opportunity to the department to introduce themselves. Thank you.
Chair, thank you very much and good afternoon to you and all the members in the House. I'm Archie Lewis, the DDG for Institution Development and Coordination. I will be guiding the proceedings in the meeting this afternoon. My colleague can introduce herself.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. My name is Wadra Conrad. I'm the Director Business Strategy and Stakeholder Management, and I'm the official who will be presenting on the quarterly performance of the department.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Thank you, Ms. Conrad. I just want to check with you. Are you the only officials today? I know, and I have to table with the Standing Committee that I have received an apology for the Minister as well as the SG who is not joining us for this meeting. And in regard to members, I have received an apology from both members Christians and Vakamba Bocha, who has apologized and not joining this meeting this afternoon. Ms. Conrad or Mr. Lewis?
Chair, I want to apologize for the absence of the remaining WCD Exco. We are supposed, or we have MIN Exco this afternoon, starting more or less at the same time. It's the meeting where Exco meets the Minister, the bi-monthly meeting. And myself and Ms. Conrad are part of that meeting, but we've been excused to attend to this commitment.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Just
Lewis.
be asked for the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. Okay, in that regard, we will then proceed. Member Kama, is Member Sayed still joining?
Yes, I'm here.
Are you? Okay. Good afternoon. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Member Khalid Sayed.
Thank you very much, Member Sayed. Members, in regard to, before we start, just the cardinal rules around this Standing Committee meeting this afternoon. I will request that everybody goes on mute as of now. And then also I want to indicate to use the chat function for if you want to note a point of order. And I want to ask that when you pose a question or want to give input on the presentations, please to identify yourselves. And then also use the raise your hand function so that I can see that you have, you want to give input or you want to pose a question. And then when you do, please switch on your mic and you are welcome to use the video function if you wish to, but if the connection on your side is too dodgy, please do not use it, then just use the microphone. And then I want to ask, while the presentation is in process, please just keep your video and your mic off. Then members, please just ensure that your mic is off after you have given input or you have posed a question, and I will also ask the department after your presentations to please ensure that your microphones are off. So today's meeting will consist of the quarterly performance reports for this department, April to June, July to September, and then October to December. I will ask the department and members, I will take guidance from you if it is okay for us to keep focus on the partially achieved targets as well as the not achieved targets, if it is okay with you. That would allow us to pose more questions or to give input, more time for input on the presentation. And then the second half of the standing committee meeting, we will have a presentation on the WCED's readiness for the third quarter to start, and in regard to the directive from the DBE for all learners to go back to the benches from grade R to grade 7 every day. So with that said, I will give over to the department for the first presentation of the quarterly reports, and then thereafter we will have our Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm trying to flight the presentation. Can you see anything?
We can't see anything as yet. Shall we ask our procedural officer to assist, Mr. Lewis?
They can do it, and she can drive it for us.
Okay. Wasima? Thank you. There it is.
Okay. Chair, the next page, the next slide. Basically, you have covered us in terms of the two issues that we will deal with at the standing committee this afternoon. It's to speak about the quarterly performance reports for 3 quarters, April to June. That's the second quarter, July to September, October to December. That's the third quarter. And then to look at where the department stands in terms of the readiness for primary school learners, that's grade R to 7, to return to daily attendance on the 26th of July. That's the start of the next school quarter. Next. Next slide.
Seems we have a gremlin, Wasima.
Yes, just give me a second.
Okay.
Is it showing now?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Next. Yeah. So the first part of it, it's about the quarterly performance review of the second, third, and fourth quarters. Ms. Conrad will deal with that part of the presentation. Over to you, Ada.
Thanks, Mr. Lewis. We're really going to look at the impact of COVID-19 on our organizational performance and monitoring, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. That's what we're going to focus on for this presentation. If we could move. In quarter 2, on the next slide.
Chair, this is not getting it to move at all.
Maybe I can, if you take it down, I'll flag mine.
Sure.
And then I'll have a little bit more control.
Thank you, Ms. Conrad.
Thank you.
I just want to
give it a whirl.
We're not seeing anything yet. There we go. Thank you.
Are you seeing the right thing though?
I don't think it is in the presentation mode. There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
All right. So, Chair, just to look at the partially achieved, the PPM in quarter 2, PPM 101, 102, and you'll see this pattern repeating itself in quarters 2, 3, and 4. This is a technical item that occurs year on year, and it is as a result of new schools opening and smaller schools closing. And then this figure has a technicality sitting in it, which references hospital schools, which one would ordinarily not count because it doesn't have any learners that are registered to those schools particularly. Learners would come from other
Miss
schools.
Conrad, can I just, Miss Conrad, sorry, can
Yes,
I
ma'am.
just stop you? I just want to highlight to you that this slide is not legible at all. It
Okay.
is rather faint.
Rather tiny. Okay, ma'am. You're going to see the same pattern in 3 and 4. This is the performance report that we would be delivering as part of the EQPR, which is why I've given it to you the way we would present it. But if we move on, maybe that one is a little bit more legible.
Yeah,
and you'll see.
yeah, I noted the others are quite better than the first one. Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
maybe let's do that. So you can see that this is just the highlights. WCD has 6 quarterly targets. In quarter 3, 2 of them were achieved, and you'd see the same pattern in quarter 2 and in quarter 4. And this is just a graphic representation of what we've spoken about. In the achieved world, this is the overall. In the achieved world, in the quarterly performance, we speak about number of schools that you can contact, and then the items that, so that one would be partially achieved for the explanation that I provided earlier. Then in program 3, which is independent schools, you'll find that the partially achieved there are those things that visits to schools. So during COVID, because this was, of course, particularly impacted by COVID, you can't, the technical indicator descriptor speaks about visits, physical visits to schools, and this could not be achieved. This item in quarter 4, which is in the January 2021 here, we were able to catch up, but also not complete all of them necessarily because of the late start to schools. So you'll find that in the quarter 4 reports, there was a massive push to completion of the targets and the performance indicators that required people to visit or training. So you'll see this pattern would be a little bit different. So we're going to ignore this one, ma'am, and I will just move over. You'll find that at this stage, 4 of the targets were achieved. So those targets that we weren't able to achieve in 2 and 3, by quarter 4, we were able to achieve them. And the 2 that are partially achieved are the 2 that speaks to the technicality of schools. And inevitably, also because of COVID and the impact that COVID had on the infrastructure environment, the number of schools that we expected to reach completion was affected, and therefore the number that we had targeted was also not achieved. But that, of course, is not the only reason. The technical reason that sits within that is that a hospital school is considered a school, despite the fact that you're not going to have learners necessarily at that school. And then that's our total. As you can see, the partially achieved is sitting in program 1. The items that sits within program 3 and 4 have been achieved, and that's independent schools. And then in conclusion, out of everything, I think the important ones that you'd like to see is the interesting stuff that is that you would like is learner retention. Our learner retention is up from the prior year from 67.3 to 67.8%. Also, what you would notice, Minister, is that the kinds of things that were impacted by COVID, we had to do some information in the in-year amendment. Some of the targets had to be amended because So, for example, a target such as formal training at CTLI, we could not conduct that because you obviously couldn't have anybody coming into the premises for 2 weeks. So even in the program 7, which is normally our quarter 4, in year amendments were done there to deal with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. But all in all, by the end of the year, which is in our quarter 4 performance indicators, by the end of quarter 4, the quarterly performance indicators were achieved, except for the 2 that sits within the number of schools. And I will stop at this point and return to Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Ms. Conrad. Can you move on?
I can, sir. I'll drive for you.
Okay, then colleagues, it's not only the return of primary schools grade R to 7, but the directive is also that all special school learners grade R to 12 must return for traditional timetabling from the 26th of July. So often we just refer to primary school learners, but our learners at special schools from grade R to 12 are included in the directive. Next. Next slide, Wada.
Mr. Lewis, I'm going next slide. I think I'm having the same. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. There are a few documentation that's driving the process. I've just listed it there, Chair and members. The one is the directions from the Department of Basic Education, and that is Government Gazette 44633, dated 28 May 2021. There are basically 2 things stipulated in that Gazette. The one is the return of primary school learners grade R to 7 and the return of learners at special schools grade R to 12. But then the Gazette also speaks about sports at schools, that all contact sport must be stopped with immediate effect. It's only non-contact sport that can happen at a school under clear guidelines as stipulated in the same Gazette. So that's the main document that led to the situation where we are currently, with the anticipated return of primary school learners and special school learners. And then supplemented by that, DBE also issued a Circular 3 of 2021, which speaks a little bit about teachers with comorbidities. That circular is dated 3 June 2021. And then from our side, we've issued under the signature of the SG2 communiques to schools. The one is about the return of primary school learners and special school learners that happened on the 26th of July. On 26 July, dated 2nd of June, and then the management of comorbidities in our schools on level 2. Now, Chair, we are not yet on level 2. If you can recall what happened last year around comorbidities, if I must just speak a little bit on that, is that all teachers with comorbidities had to apply to be exempted from school attendance, and that they were then allowed to work from home. And in the place of those teachers working from home having been exempted, the school then had the right to apply for a teaching assistant just to help manage the situation at school in the absence of the teacher. And the teacher at home needs to feed that work to the teaching assistant, and the teaching assistant to facilitate some form of work in the classroom. Now we on level, that was last year. Now when we went back to level 1, that exemption fell away. And now we are back to level 2, which actually means that the exemption of teachers from school, if we follow the historic line, has to return. But this time in the DVE circular, there is, and it's not so specific, but there is indication of mention made of the economy of the country and the difficulty that we could have, or that provinces could have, in appointing teaching assistants. However, the letter signed by the SG that went out on the 4th of June indicate to schools that the exemption, or that discussion before a teacher gets exempted, must happen between the teacher and the principal of the school. And amongst them, they must come to an agreement that the teacher will work from home. The teacher has to complete, or both, the two of them has to complete an agreement to check or monitor performance from the teacher at home, and how the teacher at home must feed his or her work back into the school, and that the department will, if the school applies for it, supply the school with a teaching assistant. In other words, we agreed that we will continue the arrangement of a teaching assistant at a stipend of 3,500 Rand per month. That is what the department can afford under the current situation, and it's not sorry, Chair, just switch off this call coming in. That is it. Can we go to the next slide, Ms. Conrad? What we have done on the receipt of the news that all learners, primary school learners, will come back, we conveyed a survey with amongst our schools, just to get a feeling, what is the situation in our schools, especially also regarding stock at schools. And the outcome on the PPEs is that whilst almost all schools still have PPEs that were delivered in 2020 or procured by the school using the norms and standards, the survey indicated that schools will have difficulty in funding further PPEs. In other words, schools might last until the end of this month or the end of July. And as a consequence of this survey, Chair, the department has in principle agreed that we will provide all schools in need with the necessary PPEs. That process is currently in progress to do the necessary requisitioning so that we can procure and supply PPEs to school, because we do not know how the third wave will pans out and present itself in our schools. The next slide. Then also the survey that we've done, because we have pertinently asked schools, are you ready to bring all your learners back? 100%. Now, Chair, we have 1,523 schools in the system, 1523. So of the responses that we received, or let me, before I do that, of the 1523 schools that we have, 1,100 schools have grade R to 7 learners at the school. Now, I must clarify that the 1,100 schools are not necessarily all primary schools, because especially in the rural areas, we have combined schools. In other words, schools with curriculum offerings from grade R to grade 12. So those schools are also included in here, And we also have another category of schools which we call pre-prep schools. That's schools with only foundation phase learners, grade R to grade 3. Now, all those schools are included in the 1,100. So at 1,100 schools in the province, we have learners ranging from grade R to grade 7. Now, of the schools that responded to the survey, 1,195 of those schools indicated that they will not be in a position to bring all learners back every day. And the reasons that the schools gave is basically one about space. That space and still the requirement of the 1 meter physical distancing that needs to be complied with. And of the 1,195 schools that indicated that they cannot bring the learners back 100%, 867 of those schools were primary schools, and then 55 of those schools were special schools. And then the schools that indicated, just stay on that slide. The schools that indicated that they can bring 100% learners back, there are 328 of those schools that indicated. And the schools with grade R to 7, there are 234 of them. And then there are 18 special schools that indicated that they can bring 100% learners back. And in bringing those learners back, they assured us that they can comply with COVID requirements. And the COVID requirements are mainly the three important ones: wearing your mask, the physical distancing, and then sanitizing. Those are the three critical elements. Next one. Now, the directive issued by DBE indicate the process which schools need to follow if they can't bring all their learners back. And we have provided schools with a template which they can complete to submit to the district offices by the 30th of June, the end of this month. And in that template, the school must give reasons why the school cannot bring all learners back every day. And that's the first question. The second question is, if the school cannot bring all learners back, how will the school ensure that all learners receive adequate teaching exposure? And as I said, that information schools must submit to the districts by 30th of June, and then that information must come to the HOD so that we can scrutinize that information. That's the first part of it. Another procedure that is contained in the directives is that if schools are open, it must inform the HOD within 72 hours of any COVID cluster breakout. In other words, if the school has got a suspicion that it seems as if we have a cluster breakout at the school, within 72 hours, the school must inform the HOD, of course, via the district, so that we can, with the assistance of health, see how we can contain the situation at the school and deal with it. Regarding the readiness, the department will get a sense after the 30th of June exactly how many schools will take up the opportunity to return 100% learners. We will ask our district to monitor and confirm that schools are in a position to bring those learners back under safe conditions. And we will closely monitor the schools bringing back 100% learners. Chair and members, then I must add that it seems at this stage that if the 1 meter physical distancing is not is not, or if it is kept, that it will make it extremely difficult for most of our schools to return 100% learners. This matter has been discussed at on a DBE level, but there is no clarity yet whether the 1 meter physical distancing requirement will be scrapped or not, because the DBE must engage the Department of Health on it and so on. So it will take some time before that matter can be resolved. I think the fact that there is a possibility now that our teachers can get vaccinated, maybe that will help the process. I won't say that is the solution to the process, because it's more our teachers which we need to protect. Not that we don't need to protect our learners, but our teachers are more vulnerable in the sense that they are working with the learners. And the fact that our teachers will now be vaccinated, not all of them, unfortunately, could perhaps facilitate the process of the return of more learners to school. Chair, I think I will stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis and Ms. Conrad, for the presentations slighted. You may now take off the presentation.
I'm making a concerted attempt to do so.
Thank you
Is
very
it
much.
off now?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much, Ms. Conrad. I just want to allude members to today's meeting. We have translation. So thank you very much to the WCPP. We have translation from English to Afrikaans, as you can see. We don't have the 3 languages as yet. So please just take a note of that. In regard to the presentations, members, I'm going to give a round of questions to you. So for the first round, I will take 2 questions per member. Whoever wants to go first. I note member Sayed.
Chair, thank you very much. I'm only going to ask, I don't have a lot. I think the presentation is very comprehensive. Just got on slide number 9 with regards to the quarterly performance reports. There's reference there being made to a contractor that has not performed sufficiently and was basically placed under administration. Could you just get a sense from the department as to when did the department realize that the targets would be missed and what mitigating measures were put in place? And then as linked to that, what progress has been made regarding the targets? Then on the second aspect regarding the readiness for learners, I think largely covered there. Just a sense maybe with regards to those schools that cannot return to 100%. I just wanted to get a sense as to what proportion of them so far have cited the fact that that classrooms will be crowded. I just wanted to get a sense of what proportion of those schools have cited that and what will be done to address that issue. Thank you, Chair. Other than that, I'm covered by the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Sayed. Member Kama.
No, thanks very much, Chair. Let me also really welcome the presentation. It was clear. I just have one question, Chair, that came to mind in terms of school readiness. If are we having these engagements that we're having with the school, to what extent are we including your school governing bodies, in the conversation? I'm asking this, Chair, because sometimes now when schools are open, you will have these frictions between your parents in terms of wanting to be assured that their kids also will be safe during this time, understanding that also we have high numbers of COVID. I don't know what might be the numbers at the time, but I'm saying, are we having this necessary engagement with the school governing bodies also, so that everyone who's involved around the operation of ensuring that there's learning is aware, is taken into confidence in terms of the process that is unfolding?
Thank you very much. In regard to the first presentation, I just want to ask Ms. Conrad if you could translate the learner retention percentage into numbers, please. And then I would also want to know what impact would the third wave have on the directive for all learners to be in a classroom as of 26th of July? So that is the first round. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst Ms. Conrad is thinking, let me try and respond to some of the questions. The question raised by Member Syed on the proportion of schools that will not return, I think it's captured in slide 30 that 1,195 schools indicated that they will not return, of which 867 are primary schools. And at the moment, our focus is on primary schools. So it's about 867 primary schools and 55 special schools that will not return. The reason that most of them indicated if they should return, then it will definitely not necessarily need to overcrowding, but they will then transgress in terms of the 1 meter physical distancing. So it's both of them. Definitely overcrowding at some of our schools who are sitting with extra large class sizes, but the biggest obstacle that will prevent us from bringing most of the learners back is the 1 meter classroom requirement, and that doesn't necessarily translate into overcrowding. What will then happen at these schools is, unfortunately, these schools will have to fall back on the temporary revised education plans. That is your TREPs that we've instituted last year. It means that all the learners cannot be at the school at the same day, and that the school will have to arrange its timetable in such a manner that learners attend the school every alternate day. As a department, and we are in consultation with curriculum, is if some of the schools return 100% and some can't, how do we then support your schools who can't come to school, or your learners who can't come to school every day? And the branch curriculum has put in some measures in terms of helping to distribute or provide some material to learners, and secondly to update what is on the WCED website in terms of curriculum plans for both teachers and learners. The last question from Member Kama was consultation with school governing bodies. Yes, that has happened already. The SG has conducted a few meetings with stakeholders, and amongst them was the School Governing Body Association. Now, the School Governing Body Association is an established body in the province where different school governing body associations, they are more or less geographically spread, participate in this forum. And the SG at that stage just shared what was contained in the directives, and that as a collective we need to help and hold hands to see how many learners we can bring back, because our learners, especially in the primary schools, are losing out on critical foundational learnings. We also had meetings with teacher unions and then with the Provincial Principals Forum representing all principals in the province. So there are discussions going on, and I'm sure, as we approach the 26th of July or the start of the next quarter, another range of these meetings will be necessary to ensure that schools are ready to deal with it, because at that point we might well be in the peak of the third wave. Thank you, Chair. I will ask Ms. Conrad to respond to the other questions.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Lewis. Chair, I'm going to respond firstly to the learner retention. So what happens with learner retention grade 12, the batch of grade 12 learners, we look at the cohort of grade 10s in the prior years that will match to the grade 12 group of 2020. And the figures there, we're looking at 52,374 grade 12 learners versus the 77,245 grade 10 learners of that cohort. And that would be the basic arithmetic that is then done. So coming into the system in grade 10 is 77,245, and entering the system in grade 12 is 52,374 as per ASS of that period. But it is a specific point in time, and it's based on the annual school survey of that time. And then, Chair, in terms of Member Sayed's question, could you assist me with exactly which reference, which slide, where it is that Member Sayed is saying that? Because, I mean, if he's asking me when, I can't give an exact date of when the department realized that the impact of COVID-19, but I can give you a general in terms of operations within the infrastructure space. What would happen is there'd be certain milestones that one would have to achieve along the way. And if those milestones are not achieved, then one can make a predictive assessment that you will not be able to achieve target set, particularly in infrastructure. In the quarterly performance, there are no infrastructure matters and no infrastructure performance indicators. So apart from giving that kind of general comment, for a specific comment to a specific performance indicator, it's going to be a little bit difficult for me to respond, Chair. But what happened in the infrastructure industry throughout is, of course, COVID had enormous impact to all industries, and particularly infrastructure. Also took a massive blow. On top of everything else, they also had to put in social distancing. They also had to apply the necessary PPEs, which of course added more and more strain on their finances. But this is a nationwide problem. It's not a Western Cape's, it's not unique to the Western Cape. The building industry has been suffering for decades, in fact, particularly the smaller industries, the smaller companies. If one just looks also at the bigger companies, they have also been suffering, not only through COVID-19, but also because of the general reduction, I would say, of the use of these big companies. But specific information we can get from the infrastructure people, and I can provide that information. But as I said, I can't see the connection to any particular quarterly performance indicator. But I hope I've given sufficient information to respond. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Conrad. Mr. Lewis. Member Sayed, who's that? Mr. Lewis?
Yeah, I just if there are still, if the question has not been responded to fully, then it can be followed up with something in writing to the Office of the HOD, and we will try to respond to it. Just to help us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. I was just going to ask Member Sayed, was his question then answered?
Thank you, Chair. I've been covered. It's been answered.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Member Kama, I see your hand raised. Is that a previous hand or is it to pose a fresh question? No, it's a previous round because I see you have lowered your hand. So thank you very much. Members, I'm going to go to a second round if you wish to. No. I just want to ask Mr. Lewis in regard to the presentation on the readiness. You have spoken about teachers with comorbidities and that they could apply and that they are those that were successful in the application that they could work from home. I just want to ask in regard to this presentation, what are the number of our teachers that are now teaching from home, those teachers that have comorbidities, those teachers whose applications have been successful? How many of them are there now that are teaching from home? And then are there teachers whose applications has not been successful, but they are at home anyway, they're not in the classroom? And if you could speak to what are that number? And then in regard to learners, are there any learners that are taking their lessons from home, offline? They are also not in the classroom. If you could speak to those numbers as well. And then you spoke about the PPE that the department would supply now in regard to all learners coming back to the school. Is this supplying, is this on top of the increased funding that schools has received in regard to the norms and standards so that they could provide PPE for themselves? And I note Member Brunkes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, my question is with regard to the principals of the school. I would like to know from the department that what is the actual powers of the principal? Does the principal of a primary school or a high school, for that matter, do they have the last decision or the power to give permission for a teacher to stay at home or he must be at school? Does that power, does it lies with the principal or does it lie with the department? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Brunkes. Mr. Lewis, that is the round.
Thank you, Chair. It's a mouthful. Let me try. Your question about how many teachers are currently at home, Chair, at this point in time with the directive that went out recently, I cannot give you that numbers immediately. I will have to consult with our HR section who are dealing with these matters. That's the one. The second one is whether learners are sitting at home. Now, the directive doesn't make provision, as in the past, for learners to be exempted from school. Remember last year, there was a section in the directions that learners or parents could apply for their learners to be exempted from school attendance and to learn from home. And what we did last year is that we provide these learners with a learning material pack so that they could continue their work. That provision is not repeated in the directions. I think if it was repeated, it could have been interpreted as contradictory to the efforts of bringing those learners back to school. And perhaps that is the reason why it's not there. So learners are supposed to be at school are supposed to attend school be it every day or alternating days. That is on that one. The PPE story is, despite the fact that schools' norms and standards were a little bit increased last year for this year so that they could make provision for PPEs, the current requisitioning that we are busy with will be on top of what the schools have, or what the schools have procured from their own funding, or if they've used their funding perhaps for other pressing needs, that the schools can be placed in a position to have PPEs. We are just careful that we don't get a situation where schools run out of PPEs and then there is the finger pointing, this one is pointing finger at that one. We want to make sure that all schools have sufficient PPEs to use it. Whether the principal has got powers to give permission for a teacher to stay at home, look, all these things work according to certain processes that is established in our HR offices. The teacher in the first place must apply to be exempted, and that application to be exempted to work from home because of comorbidities must be supported by doctors or medical certificates. That is then submitted via the principal to the district office. It lands at the HR and that is granted. If a teacher has been granted permission to work from home last year, the teacher don't have to go to the same process because we've got sufficient evidence at head office. All that must happen now for those people who have been exempted last year is that they need to come to an agreement with the principal so that the principal can strike a balance between, right, your health as a teacher is recognized and therefore you can work from home, but the right of the learner and the right to access and quality education of that learner at school, that those two rights are balanced and that the teacher agree to certain deliverables with the principal, and that is why that agreement must be signed between the principal and the teacher so that we can protect not only the teacher working from home, but we can also protect the rights of the learner at school to receive the education that he or she has a right to. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Lewis, if you can speak also to our school hostels. How would the hostel accommodation be affected in regard to this directive?
Chair, I think the situation at hostels will not change. The three requirements are still in place, and the new directives have not changed the three requirements, and those requirements wearing a mask, regular sanitizing, and then compliance to the 1 meter physical distancing. So the hostels and hostel management will be careful in terms of the number of students or learners that they can take in the hostel so that we can protect those using our hostels. They will have to sanitize not only at the school but also at the hostel on their way to school or back to the hostel. We recommended to them that they need to stagger, for example, their eating times so that the kitchens are not, the kitchens or dining places are not congested. They need to spread or stagger their study times. In other words, all the measures that were in place last year in our hostels will have to remain until there is clarity around the physical distancing requirement.
Thank you very much. I'm asking in regard to the hostels, I'm asking because concerns were raised with me regarding a hostel of a school. Now I'm not going to, name the school here now. I want to go and see for myself. So I am going to the school on Friday morning, but I will definitely write to you after I have visited that school. I trust that that is in order.
That's fine, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, no more questions? It does not seem so. Mr. Lewis, I think this is the shortest Education Standing Committee meeting that you have attended in a while.
I fully concur and agree with you, Chair. If this is your new streamlined method of operating, then it is most welcome to the department.
Mr. Lewis, I then want to take the opportunity of saying thanks to you and Ms. Conrad for presenting to us and for engaging with us around the presentations and answering the questions that we have posed. With that, I want to say then goodbye to you. I will let you leave the meeting.
From our side, thank you, Chair, and in fulfillment of our education mandate, may I ask that you keep safe, that you wear your masks, that you sanitize, and that you comply to the distancing requirement. So thank you very much from us.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
members.
Go well and be safe.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Members, if you can stay behind so that we can conclude our administrative tasks attached to this meeting. Okay, members, any recommendations from this presentations? Members?
I have no recommendations, Member Botha.
Okay.
No, Chair, I'm covered. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. I think for the I think there was one where Ms. Conrad has says that she would come back to us in regard to the numbers. A question that I have posed around the learner retention. Wasima?
Yes, Chair, I've captured that one regarding the learner retention. She did mention the numbers, but she also said that she could provide it.
Thank you very much. Now, if I can move on, if you would allow me. Members, in regard to minutes, we're going to look at our draft minutes of the 4th of May to adopt those draft minutes. If Wasima can flight it. Thank you, Wasima. Please just look at your attendance. And then the request for information. And then the resolutions. And then in regard to matters arising from these minutes, I would like us to, after we have adopted this draft minutes, if we can talk to the conference that is going to happen from the 13th to the 16th of July. With that said, members, can I have a proposer and a seconder for us to adopt these minutes, if it is correct?
Chairperson, I propose to adopt.
I second.
Okay, I have members Bosman and member Allen. Thank you very much, members. Now Wasima is going to flight the annual report. Just check your attendance. Okay, Wasima, page 2. That's the number of the overview is the number of activities that we have had in our committee. And then there is the what the activities were. Thank you, Wasima. To page 3. The bills that we have handled was around the appropriation and the adjustments. That concludes the report. Members, if you are okay and you deem it correct that this was what has transpired during our standing committee meetings, if I could have a proposer and a seconder to adopt the draft report.
I propose that we adopt the report.
Thank you, Member Bosman. Can I have a seconder for that proposal? Members, are you there?
Seconded, Chair. So sorry, I was just struggling to unmute.
Thank you very much, Member Allen. Then that takes care of the adoption of the draft report. Members, I'm going to then come back on the conference, the attendance of the conference. I'm just going to ask Wasima, we have paid to attend the conference and we have paid for a few members to go. Are this in regard to the proposal that was put forward for members, those members to go, is this still the same grouping that would attend? Wasima?
Chair, thank you. Through you. Member Sayed has indicated that he will not be able to attend and Member Kama would be going in his place. I will be submitting all documentation tomorrow because they needed to send me a quotation for attending the conference, which I've been liaising with them. I received it and I've put the necessary documentation together to be sent for approval. So everything is in place.
All right. So Member Kama is okay to go. Member Sayed is no longer going. So thank you very much for that. And then can I move on?
One thing, Chair, is that
yes.
it's a virtual conference, so there's no flights involved. It's just members need to attend and be cognizant of that. Yes.
Members just need to know that we have paid for this conference to attend, and it is online on a virtual platform. Okay, thank you. Then members, you would have seen on the parliamentary program that as you know, because we have taken a resolution in this committee meeting, that we would embark on a visit week to the Karoo during the week of I think it was the 5th to the 9th of July, if I'm not mistaken. I have, and it has been in front of programming this morning, that we do it during the week. It is the second week that we are back from our constituency period, which is now from the 2nd to the 6th of August. Can we agree to that week, still in the Karoo, but just the revised amended dates? Members, it's a very quiet education standing committee meeting today. I'm not.
Chair,
yes.
thank you, Chair. Member Branke here. If I understand correctly, that is from the 5th that you mentioned now, right? The 5th.
No, the 5th to the 9th July falls away. We do it now from the 2nd to the 6th of August. In other words, it's not going to happen during our constituency period. It's rather going to happen the second week that we are back from constituency period.
That is in order with me. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, all right.
I also support that proposal, Member Botha.
Thank you very much, Member Bosman. Then members, that then takes care of our meeting for today. It is a rather very short education meeting. Yeah, Wasima.
Chair, just reminding you about the agenda items.
In regard to the agenda items, members, I also wanted to check with you to bring forward the meeting, the content of the meeting in regard to the COVID report from the Department of Education. If you don't have a problem with that, then I would like to flight that presentation, or propose that presentation be brought forward in the light of where we are in our we are in the third wave, to bring that forward to next week Tuesday, and then ask then our visit to vooruitsig that visit then shift to the Friday, if you don't have any issue or any problem with that. Member Bosman?
I have no problem with that, Member Botha.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea.
It is all in order, Chair.
Thank you very much. I take the silence of other members as okay.
Maybe you started already for the younger members, Member Botha.
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Member Kama. Members,
branches, ma'am.
Members, with that being said, we have come, believe it or not, at 2:07. We have come to the end of our standing committee meeting scheduled for today, the 15th of June, 2021. And if there is nothing else further, then I would, as the chair, adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much, members, for your attendance. I note now, after I said what I said, I note Member Brinkhuis.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, are we finished with the resolutions? Did we?
Yes. Where were you?
I was here. I
asked for resolutions, and there was nothing. It was just the one that I highlighted during the presentation.
Okay.
So
sorry.
you snooze, you lose.
Yeah. Sorry, Chair. I didn't hear that. My apology.
Okay.
But if I may, or through you, Chair, if I may add a resolution, I don't know if it.
I want you to then put it in writing and send it to our procedural officer.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. All right. Okay, members, please go well and be safe out there. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much, Member Botha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Member Bosman and Member Botha, is it possible I can have a chat, please? No, they're gone.